So let's move over to the far left panel and we'll talk about what this feature does and what's contained within that. Because this is a beginner's guide to MadMapper, we're going to cover the basics. I will do a much more in-depth tutorial with advanced settings later. So the first one that's green, you will notice in the top corner here. So these are your quads. So if I just click this, you'll notice that's added quad 1 into that left-hand panel, and that asset, so Plasma 04 that I was discussing earlier, is now being played there. You'll also notice it on the right panel. So before we go into panels, I just want to quickly explain what we have here. So we have different quads. So we have our square quad, we have our line quad, and that's where we can create lines as opposed to geometric shapes. We have a triangle quad, which is there. Let me just scale that down so you can see that there. So we'll scale that down. We'll just scale this one down so we can have them next to each other. And then we have our circle quad, and I'll just do the same there. I'll scale that down and pull that across there. Here we have our mask feature, and we'll discuss that later. We also have a 3D shape, which again we'll discuss later, and then we have a folder function, which is a group, and we can then put different surfaces in different groups. So for now, I'm just going to get rid of the group and get rid of the 3D circle, and we're going to get rid of the line for now. So that's in the top left panel. Don't worry about the light for now. Jumping over to here, the little projector symbol, if I click that, that will then give us our projection surface. So if you notice, in my viewer, I've got projector 1 and I've got a yellow square. So that is telling me that is the projectable area. If I click on projector, I also get another menu pop down in the left corner with a set of parameters. So at the minute, my output destination is color LCD. So that's my laptop screen because I don't have a projector connected at this point. If I did have 1, 2, 3, several projectors, I click this button here, and down here it will list all of my projectors. I will connect a projector in a later part of this tutorial, and we'll go look at how we can connect all of those up. Again, down here I have this different set of functionality, so I can play with the opacity, I can play with mask specifically with the projector, and I can also create test patterns. I can publish it to siphon, which I discussed earlier, where I can siphon out of MadMapper into another program. Equally, I can siphon into MadMapper as well. And I have quite a little bit of functionality in there. If we just jump over to here, so this is when you're working with 3D shapes, and we're not going to cover that in this tutorial, but I will cover that in a later, more advanced tutorial. And then pop over to this cog, and this cog is again a list of settings. So you'll notice at the top I can highlight the background color, which creates everything. I can highlight the input background color, which I've not got anything selected yet. I can have an output cursor, which gives me my cursor on the projector. I can do a test pattern, and I can also force media ratios. I can do an audio level, and then down here I've got an additional link, so I can connect my projection to a B or to a resync or to a tap, etc. Let's just go back to this, and we'll just talk about the surfaces here. So the surface on the left, let me just make that a little bit bigger. So this, as you'll notice, I've selected it so it's covered in green, and it's got a little line to the left. So this is my input surface. So this is the surface where I'll put my assets and I'll develop my projection map. So if I just click another one, if I just click the play button here, you'll notice that changes, and it's contained within this square. So that basically means everything within that square is what will translate to my projection. So I can rescale this, and then again you can see that square's down there. It's quite hard to see on this plasma. Oh, there you go, on this plasma background. Just the bit that is in the square will be projected. So let's just click over to the other one, and then as you'll see, because I've selected quad 1, which is the square, just the square has been affected by that Plasma 04 asset. Equally, if I click the triangle and I click the 2, so I've got both side by side so I can see my asset, and I click, let's have that there, I can move my triangle around, and if you notice as I move my triangle, just have a look at the output screen, you'll see that moving. So it's in relation to where it is. If I just pop that there, and let me just click the circle, and we'll just slide up, and let's have a spectrum for the circle. Now this spectrum absolutely works on audio, so it has an audio input, as you can see. So if I just click that down there, it's a little bit more sensitive. I can change the color from that, and maybe I want to play with the hue so it's a different color. So I can absolutely create, very simply, audio responsive visuals. Now, I'm very aware that a triangle, a circle and a square are very simple projection maps, but I'm using this just to highlight this interface. So once I have my quad selected, so let's go back to the square. So quad 1, square is selected. Down here on the left hand side, I have a set of parameters I can play with. So I can play with the opacity, and that then changes the opacity of my projection. Those that are familiar with editing programs will know what these are. So you can have multiply, we can have over permeated, etc. So there's lots of different outputs there. I can also look at my effects type, so I can have my color controls. So down here I might control the brightness, I might control the contrast, saturation, for example, and you'll notice that then becomes overemphasized. I could also invert that or not. I can flip it, and that's much more recognizable if I've got an obvious image, for example. I can also play with noise of it. So look at that, that gives me an instant animation, and I can change all of that. Just pop that back to default. I can also mesh warp, which I'm going to do a section on later within this tutorial, and I can play with masks and soft edges. Again, I'll do a section on that within this body of work that is this tutorials. Now, if I want to preview this, because obviously I'm still within my computer, so if I had a projector connected, I would want to see this on the screen. So there's a couple of ways I can do that. So if I'm on a Mac, I can press Command U, and that will give me this warning to enter full screen mode. So that's giving me a full screen because I don't have a projector connected, as I said, so I don't have an additional screen. To come out of that, I press Command T, which will bring me back to my interface. I can also just go with my mouse up to the output, and I get a list of options here, but I also get the shortcuts here, as you can see.